This next set of questions has to do, it originates from a series of voter initiatives that have been circulating in Placerville. And these initiatives are currently for the city, measures for the city ballot, but they also have ties to potential measures on the county ballot as well. These were initiated by a variety of people that have concerns. We did get them certified by the city. They haven't been posted on their website, and the Mountain Democrat hasn't reported on them, but there has been a lot of voter outreach, and we do have petitions that are being signed. And so we are just interested in your thoughts on some of these topics, which you may or may not have heard about previous to today. So the first one has to do with the Placerville Historic District. And the question is, what is your position on adopting the historic district map for downtown Placerville that was presented by the Historical Advisory Committee in 2012? And I'll just say some of these buildings that are in that historic district are actually owned by the county. Some of them are owned by the city. And then many of these buildings, of course, are privately owned. But there's multiple ownerships, and it certainly there would be decisions that both city and county officials would be making. And so we are just hoping you can share with us, what are your thoughts on adopting that historic district map? Mandy, if you can start off with that, that would be great.
Okay, is that just the one question that you're asking me about?
Yeah, right now that we'll have,
okay.
Yes, there's a second part, but go ahead.
I think it's really important to make that happen. Like, I know that there's a lot of logistics to it. One of the things that I think that's holding it back is people wanting to develop, people wanting to put roundabouts in. And if we start doing those things, we're gonna lose our opportunity to make our area historical district. And I just think that the benefits from it far outweigh the minuses, the negatives. I think it's what the community wants. I think that we cherish Placerville and all the history. So to fight it just kind of makes me feel like people don't really have a good gauge on what the people in Placerville want. That's pretty much my answer. I mean, I know that there's a lot to it, but I think it's a worthy cause, and it's something worth fighting for.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Tracy Bunch, City Council candidate. What is your position on adopting the historic district map for downtown Placerville that was presented by the Historical Advisory Committee in 2012?
Well, first of all, I think it's, I wish we had the other candidates here. Mandy, you hit it dead on the head, when it comes to preserving things and kind of looking at things. But what I think is kind of off is that, sitting on something for like 8 years. And then, like I say, a lot of people have graduated college, like moved here, things like that. We always had to keep the community to participate. When people participate in things, they feel part of it, and it's more protected. That comes along with unity, and that brings equality, that brings safetyness. And like, it is that simple. So without a doubt, it just seems like other agendas are always coming up for, something else, special interest or something, I don't know. But me, myself, and I would bring together more like a blue ribbon task force, with a broad of people, vetting people to come in and kind of look at these things. So they can have a little knowledge. Again, it's all about bringing the community in. That's being accountable, that's being transparent. Everybody know what's going on. Everybody's having fun on doing these things and things like that. So I just really think it would be good if all candidates were here to answer this question, so we can all see where we're coming from and see where everybody kind of lays. In the end, it's always going to be given to the people. And that's one of the things is like me running for city council, that I swear by myself and I make a pact with the city that I'll go in and I'll be very transparent, accountable. I just want to make sure that when people sleep at night, they're safe. I want to make sure that, everything that's going on in the community is always conversated about just right, rather than yelling, rather than fussing, pointing fingers. We kind of can take blame. It's not the easiest thing to do for people sometimes, but at the same time, we know what we need as a community, and it ain't always going to be easy to get the answer. So I come in from that point. Like I said, I would quickly implement things, have deadlines, and rather than sitting back and letting things kind of take peril, because it seems like it's just people, they want the people to forget. You know, I know the City Planning Commission. Yeah, I just want to make sure, like I said, we're on the same page. So it's all about community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. George Turnbow, if you can speak about this, adopting the historic district map for downtown Placerville.
I think it's a great thing, and I think you guys we need to move forward with it, because we need to preserve the history of Placerville and our county. And like I talked about, once the history's gone, it's gone. And I don't want them to see them change things, like moving the, you know, the Druid monument or putting a roundabout there. It's just wrong. It really is. And you're talking about the confidence building. You know, let's look at a way. Don't tear it down. Don't reconstruct it with a new one. Why don't you just, you know, replace the bricks that needs to be done in it? Put it back the way it was, the way it looked like, you know, before. This is what happens a lot. What happens in our county is they take these buildings and they're gone, and that's it, instead of trying to look for ways to restore them. And it's just like the courthouse. You know, I want to make sure the courthouse stays where it's at. I don't want to see it be moved or tore down or used for something else. No, let's preserve that courthouse. We really need to, because it's a very much so a historic site. It really is. It's just like the bell tower in downtown Placerville, same thing. So I think this map should be adopted and move forward. I really care about the, you know, the people, and the people that they move here for a reason, because they love the history here in our little town. So I don't want to see it destroyed.
Thank you so much. Great. John Heidel, what are your thoughts on adopting the historic district map for downtown Placerville?
So I was elected to the Board of Supervisors and started taking office in 2017, and I represent El Dorado Hills. So I don't have a large knowledge base, depth of history of Placerville. I know a little bit about it. I reached out to try to get a copy of this map from 2012 today, and I was unable to have the time to be able to look at it. So at this point, I have no opinion because I really don't know what's in the map. So.
Okay, well, just if you're familiar with Main Street, it pretty much goes from the Sacramento Highway 49 intersection at the west end up to the Cedar Ravine intersection, you know, just basically the side after the Druid Monument there. So, you know, that's kind of the section, and you know, I don't know if that helps you visualize where it is, but there are a number of resources in there that are actually owned by the county. The courthouse and even the historic post office, the annex building, where I believe the Board of Supervisors used to meet once upon a time. So there are some buildings in there. There's also a building that the county does lease to the Chamber of Commerce. So there are definitely connections with this Main Street district area for both city and county. So I'll just say, I don't know if you wanted to comment at all further. I understand you're just learning about the map,
I'm a strong advocate,
but that might help.
Yeah, I'm a strong advocate of maintaining history where we really need to maintain history, but I can't judge based upon what the city of Placerville, what the residents of Placerville really want. I would look to the city to adopt something first before it comes to the county, and then to follow their lead and do a separate independent evaluation of the needs for it, the viability of it, what the inclusionary, exclusionary things are, and then, you know, a rule on that based upon current knowledge of what the proposal is. So that's all I can offer at this point.
That's great. Thank you so much. This next question is somewhat related, because of course this map was proposed by a historical advisory committee. And so the next question, we'll start with Tracy Bunch on this one. What are your thoughts on establishing a historical advisory committee for the city and or the county, whether we had, you know, 2 committees, you know, or one, but this committee doesn't currently exist anymore in Placerville. And so the concept is, you know, what do you think about having a historical advisory committee somewhere in the county that would promote the preservation of historic resources in Placerville and in all the other areas, that would include the benefits of grants, finding grants, the benefits of loans and tax breaks for restoration of historic buildings, as well as other resources. Currently, we don't have a committee, so the question to all the candidates is essentially, you know, what are your thoughts on establishing a historical advisory committee in the city or county? Tracy, if you can start with that one.
Okay, thank you. You know, I got a nice comment about I can make something out of nothing, right? I always enjoyed it. I got a great imagination, got great visions and things like that. And so I think it would be awesome, you know, from the start of it, of like, you know, vetting people, you know, coming up with a mission statement. I've sat on a lot of committees in El Dorado that have made a lot of change as far as in the judicial system and for the youth and things like that. And so one of the fun processes is getting to know each other and getting to know what we take an interest at. And these subcommittees, like, you know what I mean? So when we take missions, you know, you create 4 or 5 people to go do this and 4 or 5 people to do this, and coming back and talking about the things that we found. And so I think it would be a great idea, because it'll bring a lot of not only protection, but it'll bring a lot of ideas, you know, in order to preserve it, in order to, you know, use it for tax revenue. Like, you know, I mean, people come up with different visions and things like that, where we can kind of incorporate like tours and, you know, items that we can make money off of as far as the city and things like, so we can enjoy the fruits of our labor, to put it like this and that. So, you know, altogether, when I think about starting something new, I just get excited. And so that's why I'm saying I'm the best candidate at this time, you know. All respect to Miss Mandy, she's awesome. But at the same time, I am the guy that can inspire people to volunteer and to come into a committee and lead a committee and make the people of Placerville very proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next, we'll go to George Turnbull.
Well, you were talking about the Chamber of Commerce building, you know, and you know, that used to be the old Veterans Building before it became the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but anyway, I think this committee would be a good thing for the county, especially when we can preserve a lot of our history, the buildings in different areas like Coloma, Placerville, El Dorado, Diamond Springs, that could represent all of us, and also the city of Placerville. But I think you could get members of it in different areas and stuff on this committee. But one of the biggest things that I had a deal with one time was the cemetery. They tried to make our cemetery a pioneer cemetery, and nobody could be buried there anymore. And when we had this meeting, actually I talked to Carl Borelli, they were going to shut the cemetery down where there's still family members could be buried at that cemetery. And one of the biggest things is Helen Ballman, you know, she was the representative of District 2, and I talked to Carl about it, and Carl called me in the office and I explained to it. And Helen asked me the question, you know, well, that is a county cemetery. It's been a county. I said, no, it's not. She says, well, how do you think it's not? I said, well, here's a deed, and we bought it for $10 in gold in 1908. Now, don't tell me this is a county cemetery. And she backed off. So this is kind of the things that we need to clarify a little bit. You don't go into certain areas and shut things down, especially if you start a committee, a historical committee like this, because it's very crucial. And I think they need to do a little bit more homework, know about what some of these buildings and who owns them, and also these different cemeteries and stuff. So anyway, I saved our cemetery because the county was going to take it away from us because of it. And it was I think a person named Sue Silva is what her name was. And she tried to make it a pioneer cemetery and close all these pioneer cemeteries where no more burials could be done. Well, they don't understand there's still a lot of family members that take care of these. But I think that this committee would be a good thing. I think you could get members from the city, the their cities too, like El Dorado and Diamond Springs? Because a lot of the people in El Dorado, they didn't want the roundabout there. There was a lot of people showed up, but we didn't even know anything about it. So anyway, I think it's a great thing, and I think we need to look forward to it.
Great, thank you so much. Next on the idea of a historical advisory committee, John Heidel.
I'm certainly open to the idea. I think everybody recognizes if we establish an advisory committee of some kind, it has to follow the Brown Act. There has to be Form 700. So there is a significant amount of little work that has to be done, I'll call it, for an advisory committee to be formed. I'm open to the idea. I'm kind of struggling with, if this has been talked about before, why isn't it not part of our current county advisory committee structure? We have an awful lot of advisory committees. So I would want to reach back and understand why previous supervisors didn't get this enabled, because it seems like a great idea, but it hasn't happened. So there must be some reason it hasn't happened. And I don't know the politics of that or anything else, but I would certainly be open to it. I have participated in a lot of the Historical Society events, and I have been involved with the activities at our El Dorado County Fairgrounds, the museum that's there. And so those, I think, are heritage, history representations, the museum in particular, that I want to make sure that we preserve and use and put into this kind of a program. And we do get advice on the board to a certain level from that group, but it's not a recognized advisory. So I'm certainly open to it. I'd want to try to understand why we don't already have it, and make sure the purpose statement is consistent with the goals of the general plan, which I haven't studied it in detail, but I believe it is consistent with the goals of the general plan.
Great, thank you. Next, Mandy, your thoughts on a historical advisory committee?
I think I think we should have done it a long time ago. It's kind of surprising that we don't have it. And I think one of the reasons why we don't is because there's people that have other interests they want to develop, and that's really what it comes down to. And I mean, we have to be real, and there's people that really are focused on developing, and when that's their focus, they do not want historical preservation because that hampers their development. The people in this county and the people in this city, they love the history of it. They love the walking down and seeing these old buildings, and they want more of it. And so when we talk about the community or the advisory board, we also should include indigenous, prehistoric things. There's gems and minerals. There's so many facets to this that, I mean, if we were to put our energy towards that, we would bring, like Tracy said, more tourism, more money, more things like that. And I feel that that's really what the people around here want, especially in the city. So it is surprising we don't have that committee yet, but it's something that we should definitely, when Tracy and I get into city council, we'll be working on that. Right, Tracy?
Great. Well, thank you. And again, just for a point, this question came out of the fact that there was a committee for some period of time, and they did do the work to develop that historic district map. But it wasn't long after the map got proposed, I believe it was maybe 2014, that this committee got dissolved. And so I'll just say that there's been some comments in the chat that there is actually mention about a historical advisory committee in the general plan. So to John's point, it does sound like there is alignment with the county plan. So thank you all for your comments on that.
Jennifer, do you know if the committee was started by the city or the county, just to give me the history, the backdrop?
Oh, sure. This was a city. This was a City of Placerville Advisory Committee.
Okay, all right.
And so that was yes, this was a city. I don't know. I have not ever heard that there was ever a county advisory committee. Like you said, the County Historical Society has had probably a role in functioning that way in providing certain kinds of advice, but may or may not you know, really have the professional background or the diversity of perspective to be advisory for the whole county on all the kinds of things that we have in the county in terms of resources. But certainly there are some foundations to build on, and so thank you all for your comments on that. The next question, this might be a simpler one. Again, another one of these initiatives that has been circulating has to do with the Druid Monument. And the 1926 Druid Monument is part of a historic streetscape. It's also part of that historic district, but it's actually part of a historic streetscape from when it was first installed in 1926. Much of that streetscape is still there, and many citizens feel it shouldn't be altered. What is your thoughts on leaving the Druid Monument in its current location instead of moving it in the process of creating a four-way intersection? And so we are cycling back now to start this question with George Turnbull about the Druid Monument.
Well, I think they need to leave it alone. They don't need to move it. It's been there, you know, since 1926 when it was put in. And I don't think we need to move it to expand the traffic flow through that particular area. They need to work around it if they need to do. But also, I don't think they need to modify it any either. So I would like to see it stay there. It's a very historic piece of our of Placerville and our county, and it represents a lot. So I would like to make sure that it stays there and not be moved.
Thank you, George. John Heidel,
I'm
thoughts on the Druid Monument?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to comment on 4, 5, and 6 at the same time because it's out of my wheelhouse. I have no opinion on these. I'm open to the county engaging and working with the city, but I really think it's a city-based question and not a county one. So I'm going to have no opinion on the next 3 or 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, well, that's fine. I will say when we get to the bridge topic, I'm going to just expand that out to historic bridges because the initiative actually doesn't specifically address this bridge either, but it is certainly related to the historic district. But back to the question about the Druid Monument, and thank you, John. We certainly appreciate you know, your comments about city issues, and certainly some of these are city issues. So for our next candidate to comment on this about the Druid Monument, Mandy Rodriguez.
I definitely think it needs to remain where it is. There's a big effort to make a roundabout there. And as somebody who drives by there every single day, at least 2 to 4 times, I think that it's fine. It functions just fine the way it is. I ride by there in my car, on my bike. It's fine. And people talk about, oh, well, you can't go and see the actual plaque at the Druid. Well, I have a simple answer for that. Make a plaque on the sidewalk so people don't have to run into the middle of the street. And I've talked about that before, is making something where you could actually just scan it, like RF code it and scan and get all the history of the Druid statue. So I'm very against that. And also when we start doing things like that, I mean, if they were to do what they want to do with that area and make that roundabout and realign everything, it is going to completely change that area of Placerville. And as a resident and as someone who lives right down the street, I don't want that to happen. And people that live on Clay Street are adamant against it. And for whatever that grant money, that roundabout grant money everybody wants, and except the people who actually live here. So yeah, and also you have to realize when we start doing these major changes like this, it takes us out of the running to be a historic district. So we have to we need to preserve things the way that they are, fix things, just beautify that area, just make it nicer, fix it up. So
Thank you, Mandy. Tracy, what are your thoughts on leaving the Druid Monument in its current location instead of moving it to create a four-way intersection?
Hey, Jennifer, I must say, you know, all these candidates are very accountable and transparent. Wow. You know, it's like a new age in politics right now. You know, ever since I met Mandy, she's been very transparent and forthcoming about everything. So I just appreciate being here tonight, talking with all of y'all. It's been beautiful. And so I wonder what other candidates are, you know, as we talk about these things. You know, it's a very easy, like the people want to know, what are you going to do? I'm not here to change history. I'm here to protect it. I think the Druid has a legacy. It's crazy to me. I look up these things and I hear the conversation from people, various people, various organizations. That Druid means a lot of things to a lot of families. Back in the days when they didn't have unemployment and things like this and that, you know, the families had to depend on each other. You know, the Druid is somewhat connected to the Union Cemetery, which is not the Union soldiers, it's more like the Union as an organization. That is just mind blowing to me. And so now when I look at that Druid, I think of, you know, all the families that it really took care of. It's like a symbol of us. Like, think about it. It's a symbol of the community of Placerville, how we come together, we make a decision. And think about it, when we had the COVID-19, look how everybody came out to make sure we donated, we volunteered, we took care of our children. You know, I was in the best place ever while my family was all like worried about things and stuff like that. I said, to see Placerville at work is something epic to me, from each city. And those are the things that I just want to make sure I enhance. You know what I mean? I just want to connect the cities from El Dorado Hills to Tahoe and, you know, connect the outskirts of all the, you know, small towns and things like that. So we can all just like do it like they did back in the olden days. We need each other and we can bring each other to a certain point where we never have to want. We can all be happy. We can all kind of get a little bit, but it's going to take some hard work and some understanding. And so that Druid is actually a symbol of what we're trying to do right now, if you stop and pay attention to it. So I wouldn't touch anything like that. You know, I don't want any bad omens. And so, again, I really appreciate being with the candidates tonight. And you're doing a wonderful job, Jennifer. You keep up the good work, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is related. We'll try to keep this one fairly simple. The Clay Street Bridge is one of many historic bridges in El Dorado County. And this one is directly related to the Druid Monument topic, because it is the bridge itself that in this case, you know, the proposal is to replace it, you know, redirect the whole street, make a bridge that is a lot bigger, and essentially make a four-way intersection. And because that would make the traffic go straight through the Druid Monument, they would move the Druid Monument. So the whole question here, though, is just about alternatives. Would you, I mean, at this point, there's not anybody working on a design for an alternative plan. So the question is just, and again, you know, John, I know that this bridge is not one you've looked at that much, but there are other historic bridges, certainly in El Dorado County. There's been a lot of bridge projects, and, you know, some of them have been controversial, some of them have not. But would you support developing design alternatives to manage traffic without destroying the historic Clay Street Bridge in this case, or other historic bridges, to manage the historic Clay Street Bridge, which also provides a current traffic calming effect? Some of these, you know, older, narrower bridges actually do help slow down the traffic. So anyway, this can be fairly simple. And again, if there's another bridge you want to talk about, or it's okay if you really feel that you can't comment on it. But John, we're going to start with you on this question. Would you support developing design alternatives to manage traffic without destroying the historic bridge, which also provides a current traffic calming effect?
So I'm only going to speak to the Clarksville Bridge because I'm very familiar with that. And there's a Clarksville Historical Society. Some of the prime movers of that are Betty January and Doug Hoos, both of which have supported me all the way through my campaigning. I've worked very closely with both of them. Betty, obviously, with the El Dorado Hills Library. Doug, he was on the Fire Department Board of Directors with me. So I would turn to them and try to determine, is it necessary to do that? How would you propose? you know, to make sure that that accommodation is included in any project that might be brought forward to develop that property. I'm not aware of any near-term proposals or prospects or discussions to develop that property. I do know that Doug had some ideas of doing some things with one of the parcels out there, including having access to the old gold mines. I guess there's 2 gold mine entries on the property, et cetera, without getting into details. So I would definitely use the resources available to me, reach out to them, get their inputs, and then try to make sure that was appropriately addressed in whatever development plan might come forward. But that's the only one I can comment on.
That's great. Thank you. Next, Mandy, can you comment on the Clay Street Bridge and supporting design alternatives?
Of course, I think it would be a great idea to think of design alternatives. Once again, it goes back to what the community wants and what the developers want. And I'm always going to side with the community and what they want. And I'm being part of the community. I moved here because I liked the way that our town was. And to change it is just, it's going to take us out of the running for a historical district. So we need to preserve all those things. And you know, when I ride my bike by there, or I walk by there, there's always people sitting on that bridge, and it's just, I'd like to see it preserved. And it's looking a little rough these days, so it definitely needs some love, but it still has a really unique character, and it's kind of a cool bridge. And so why are we changing this? And then it goes back to the people who live on Clay Street. They don't want it changed. It's their street. Why would we go and change it? And the traffic, when they do this realignment, the traffic that it's gonna bring to Clay Street, as someone who, when I first moved here, I lived on Clay Street, and it is, people go fast up that street. So to do anything to make it bigger and wider, they're only gonna go faster. And I know people on Clay Street do not want that. So we need to listen to them.
Great, thank you. Tracy Bunch, would you support developing design alternatives?
Ms. Jennifer, I love
without
how you say my name, I swear. Tracy Bunch, all right. I definitely, Clay Street is like awesome. I thought it was my little secret street, to be honest with you. When Apple Hill first popped off and I moved into my house, I was like, oh, cool. I got a little street I can kind of sneak downtown real quick, give me something to eat, and I can sneak back. But slowly but surely, it became everybody's street when Apple Hill opened up, and it got a little crowded. And you know, running the group home, funny part about a little story real quick is, you know, the kids used to run away from the group home over right on Canal Street, and they'd take off running. And I could always find them right there by Hangtown Creek, by the bridge. You know, I could always, they were like, how did you know, Trey? I'm like, for some odd reason, everybody feels like this is a safe place. And so, you know, you find a lot of people, sometimes just in thought, you find couples sitting on the bridge, you know what I mean, talking about, you know, it's intimate. It got something magical that happens right there sometimes. I know Caltrain kind of gave it a rating and things like that, but it's not condemned. Another thing that goes with volunteering, you know, restoring it, you know what I mean, things like that. People take pride in that. One last quick story before I go. One of the cool things I saw, I was walking downtown, and a young man came out of the candy store, which is Bonkers, which is run by Tony Window, a great guy. The guy came out and he was like backing out. He was like in awe. He was like, oh my God. And he's just looking around the town, and he turned around because I looked familiar to him. He's a kid from Oak Park. He said, oh my God, man, it's like this place is like a fairy tale. It's like this candy store, this bell tower, and he was just looking around with amazement. He's like, this is like a fairy tale, man. He's like, you lucky you live here. You know, and that made me feel real good because he only ended up here because he traded routes with one of his friends. He had a chance to come up to Placerville. And he just giving it, just as a kid, never seeing nothing, but just hearing it, he was just so proud of it. Like, wow, like, you know, you have a chance to live in a city like this. He's like, I'm bringing my family up this weekend to go to the candy store and enjoy. So I think sometimes we take these things for granted, and we need to protect these things because there's really no other place like it. Again, the biggest migration in history. Everybody came to Placerville, Coloma. It was like madhouse. So people came to change their lives, and we cannot like interfere with things like that. And between me and Mindy, like I say, we disagree on a lot of things, but one thing that I respect about it is she does have a heart to protect. And so if we do get blessed to sit on city council together, I think the people are going to be very excited, you know. So I feel the same way. We might have a lot of arguments, but we'll also, you know, protect the city.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. George
Yes,
Turnbull, do you have thoughts on design alternatives for the Clay Street Bridge or any other historic bridge that might be, you know, in some kind of transportation project?
Well, I think that's things, we need to look at different ideas and stuff and bring it to the table with different designs that we could look at to save that little bridge, the Clay Street Bridge, because I think it's got a lot of character as far as I'm concerned. And if the people, you got to do what the people want. If the people want that bridge and they want it to stay there, then so be it. That's what it should be. It should be up to the people. It shouldn't be up to big developers or you know, the city to be able to do that. And that's the reason why I think that's right. That Historic Society Committee should be put in place, because there's a lot that would not ever happen with that. They would make sure that they would look into different ideas to be able to preserve that bridge or preserve the history of that area.
Great. Thank you so much.